Okay, so hello everyone. As I said, my name is Lenora Callahan. I am a postdoctoral researcher on the GEPIC project, which is an international research project that's funded by UKRI and EU Horizon. It's a project that's looking to create new innovative interventions that go into the classroom that are meant to support the development of political confidence of girls that are facing multiple disadvantages, right? So this is, we're taking an intersectional approach at looking at ways of developing political confidence or confidence to get involved in politics in girls that are facing sort of multiple disadvantages. So as a part of this series that we've been running since last summer, believe it or not, we had our series starting last, I believe, June. Ran through the summer as a trial. It was quite successful. And so we continued it through the autumn, and now we're starting again in spring. And the main purpose of this, one of the main purposes of this seminar series is to inform how we operationalize and sort of conduct this research project. So for those of you who don't know, GEPIC runs as not just in the UK here, but we also have partners that are in Belgium and Czechia, or Czech Republic, and Denmark and Germany and Spain. So there are many, many moving parts to this project, many different sort of arms of the project and many moving parts. Um, we previously did some observations in classrooms to see what was going on in the classrooms that may be contributing to a gender disparity in girls getting involved in political discussions, right? And so that what we learned from there, that informed how we took on the next steps in the project, which are to do experiments, to try different methods and different pedagogical approaches that can possibly improve the confidence of these girls facing multiple disadvantages, and then to also inform the interventions that we're developing. So the pilot of the intervention is already being developed in 3 countries, in the UK and Belgium and Czechia. And we are in the process of finalizing these right now, and they'll be implemented in school starting in mid-April of this year. So we'll do that through the summer, and then that'll inform the full intervention, which will be developed in autumn this year and then implemented early next year. So it's a very quick moving project that has many moving parts, many partners involved. And one aspect of the project um, that we, as I talked about before, were the observations made in classrooms to see what was going on in classrooms to inform our hypotheses about what we will be addressing in the experiments as well as the interventions. So today we are very lucky to have a presenter, Dr. Athina Mara, who is here at Brookhampton University on the UK side. And she will talk to you about some of the results and the findings from what we're calling Work Package 3. So Work Package 3 are those observations that I talked about. So whenever you hear that term, Work Package 3, that's our internal language. That means nothing to anyone else. But to you all, that would mean that these are the observations that we made in all of the different countries in the different classrooms. And so without further ado, we have a Dr. Athina Mara.
Thank you, Lenora. Thank you for the introduction and for organizing this. Thanks also to Bryony and you for inviting me. So, indeed, today I will talk about the third work package of GEPIC, and I will give you a part of its results. I'm going to focus on, as you see on the screen, on students' perceptions regarding politics and gender barriers in their political participation in the classroom. So as an outline of today, I will provide you with a background of Work Package 3, and then I will follow with the findings from the students' focus groups, and then we can discuss some conclusions in the end. So just to give you an overview as a starting point, I will begin with the aims of Work Package 3, which was aimed to examine how exactly the gender gap looks like in political engagement. And this work package explored potential constraints that girls are facing in schools, so as to get an understanding of what happens in the classroom realities in five different countries. So we did conduct a mixed methods, small scale data collection in year 9 secondary classes. So we're talking about students between 13 and 15. And the leading partners was Hampton University, but also Charles University in Prague. And we had participating countries besides the UK and the Czech Republic from Belgium, Denmark, and Germany. So our initial research design was drawn upon previous investigation on political efficacy, student engagement, and gender inequalities in education. And as the project is aimed on designing effective classroom practices, what we try to get an insights and a hypothesis for is to get further knowledge that can inform the next work packages of the project. As Leonora said, the experiments in work package 4 and the interventions in work package 5. So we have a few objectives here, but our main one for today is to find whether the previous findings of research also exist in the data that collected in a non-representative international research sample. I'm going to talk about the focus group's results today, but just as a background, within this work package, we did observations, teachers' interviews, and we also conducted student surveys. And what we wanted to do is to examine and understand the student dynamic in the classroom, and in particular, how the classroom is experienced by pupils of different genders, race, ethnicities, socioeconomic characteristics, and whether and how political inequality manifests itself in classroom dynamics. And as I already mentioned, we did that in order to generate data and hypotheses in order to inform other work packages in the project and to inform outputs for wider dissemination. And in regards to the methods that we used, we did a small scale data collection in the previous spring, so in spring 2023. As I said, in year 9 secondary schools in 5 countries. So the data that you will see today is from Belgium, Czechia, and Denmark. And our goal was to provide, as I said, a qualitative insight into the current state of play in the classrooms. And we wanted to see, in addition to the literature review and to the secondary data, what happens in the actual classroom. So our main goal was to collect data through group interviews, and observations, and teachers' interviews. The methods that we did further on in the sampling, I will discuss in the next slide. But just to mention that we selected students based on a purposive sampling. So we chose the most silent and the most vocal students according to our observations in the classroom, and we analyzed our data based on the thematic perpetual analysis technique. This is the how our sample was actually shaped, and as I said before, we applied purposive sampling. So we invited the most vocal male or female students to participate, and the most silent ones. The focus groups took place in schools, but in a private place allocated by the school that allowed students to open up and express their own viewpoints on the asked matters. We had some common guidelines through our partners, and we followed them in order to moderate the students' discussions. And from as a preliminary results, we noticed that very often student participation reflected the participation in the focus group discussions. So students that were actually active in the classroom were also active in participating in the focus group, and very frequent dominating the discussion, and vice versa. The students that they were less active within the classroom were also observed to be more quiet during the focus group discussions. And however, the dynamics were quite dependent on whether the students were friends with each other. So if student focus groups were consisted of friends, um, uh, we observed that students had higher levels of engagement discussion. And as a closing point to the sampling, the research field notes document that students tended to open up and express their opinion in a focus group discussion when their friends were also voicing their opinion, so they were reinforced by their friends. And in students that, on the other hand, were not consisted of students that were friends with each other, we noted that the levels of participation was lower. So what you see here in the graph was the actual sample of the focus group. This comes from an overall sample of 418 students from 23 classes in 5 countries. And the actual focus group sample is 122 students within the number of 22 focus groups. And you see that the focus groups were took place in Czech Republic, Belgium, Denmark, and the UK, as Germany did not participate in focus groups. So what's the layout of the sampling population is that it's about 1/3 of the total, our total sample from work package 3. And more of the half of the participants were girls, and we also had a good number of students coming from an ethnic minority. And going forward, just to mention that in the following slides, the quotes of the focus groups, in the quotes of the focus groups, the focus groups codes are indicated by the country, the type of respondent. So it's S for student, and the type, and we also have put the country code as an identifier of the country and the number of the focus group. So the main themes for our thematic analysis are, and what I'm discussing actually today, is first the students' perceptions regarding politics. So I'm going to start with what students are understand as a classroom discussion in order to be able to identify the degree of students' openness and perceptions of what politics is actually meaning to them. And then I'm gonna discuss barriers in girls' political participation. So what we are trying to explore here is which are the barriers for students and particularly girls to politically engage and participate in the classroom. And what we are trying to figure out is also which students are said to engage more in the classroom discussion. So coming to the findings of the focus groups, as I said before, the first topic is the meaning of politics according to students. So the focus group interview data gave general quantitative insight into students' perceptions and understanding of what politics means to them. And what we are preliminary see is that students usually associate politics and political discussions mostly with what is said the higher and state level of governance. So they quite much correlate politics with MPs and so on. And what is more is that politics is quite often seen as an adult-dominated area. So we preliminarily see that students' viewpoints, politics are not linked to their immediate interests or responsibilities according to their age, as they are own as they own say. And a very preliminary explanation is that pupils in the age of 13 to 15 don't have the right to vote, and therefore they feel that they cannot have an impact on political issues and decisions uh, such as adults can have. But going further on, we see that young people often express their a sort of understanding of politics as a domain that can be related to decisions and can be impactful to their lives. In the focus groups interviews, students very often reflected on family background, socioeconomic status, social class, and ethnicity to a person's political interests. So, for example, we see that a student said that they think that politics are quite much about people who come from a higher social class or whose parents have a higher education, and those are the people that are more likely to be interested in politics. Or in the third statement, you can see that they mention quite a lot the upbringing, so their backgrounds coming from the households. And going further on in what politics means to students, students focus groups also capture the overall lower levels of young people's interests in politics. And very often, besides mentioning that politics is not a relatable area to their interests, they very much, they quite often mention that politics is seen as a boring or unexciting domain. And that relates quite much to their perception in regards to the voting age and stage of life, as I mentioned before, in order to correlate that to their expression that politics are not relatable to their interests and living realities, but also connecting politics with connecting politics only with voting and the most formal levels of governing and political decision making at the state level. Students often feel that they don't really have anything to do with politics. So they tend to, students in the focus groups tended to very often to see politics as a domain that doesn't have a lot to do with them and their livelihoods, and as a domain that it's years distant from them. And less often, as you see in the second part of the slide, politics and in specific the domain of politics in specific countries and specific educational contexts, such as Denmark, uh, is linked to the democratic values and the open dialogue that can learned, applied, and take place inside and outside of the classroom. And in regards to how students perceive and respond to political discussions in the classroom, most students indicated that in regards to frequency, that classroom discussion don't happen very often. And when they happen, it seems that the students are not very eager to participate themselves, because they rather want to discuss topics related to politics among their friends instead of a big group of people in the classroom. And what we saw is that some students, particularly girls, are more comfortable with listening rather than participating during the political discussions in the classroom. And this quite much depends to the students if there is a good atmosphere, and if students find the topic the discussed topic interesting. However, we shouldn't take as a granted that students don't like to participate to political discussions. Some of them said that they do like to participate in political discussions. They are knowledgeable and they are opinionated in politics if they found that the topic is interesting to them. But also, as I said before, they prefer talking about politics in smaller groups and in groups that they are feeling comfortable with. But however, as we will examine the next session, the organization of the class and the feeling of safety is quite much important for the students. So coming to students' perspectives on barriers to political participation in the class, what we had examined within work package 3 was the educational research points to several factors that facilitate or, on the other hand, can be inhibited to students' engagement in political participation. And what we tried to examine was the nature of the curriculum, the pedagogies, the students' interest and self-efficacy, but also the classroom climate. And the importance of some of those factors came up front to the topic of the focus groups discussions. So we see, for example, that some existing barriers to students' political participation in the classroom is, besides the lack of their interest, the feeling that by participating, uh, they will get a negative or even a restricted experience, and they will experience a negative classroom climate if they express their opinion. And if we associate this finding to what politics means to students, we see that a major barrier in their political participation is that uh, students find politics as a domain as boring or not interesting, and as a topic that can most likely relate to adults and to higher levels of governance. So in terms of as I said before, politics can be seen as an overwhelming subject to a lot of students. And in addition, students mentioned their heavy student workloads, and they're opposed to uh, add this to their leisure time with the friends inside and outside the classroom. And what is a main core of our project and our research here is the relation to gender stereotypes and aversing, so not taking the risk to participate in politics. And from what we saw from previous research and previous theoretical exploration is that what is called as masculinist ethos in politics is very often also described in students' wordings about the domains of foreign politics, which is often discouraging girls from political participation in the classroom. And if we relate this to the predominant breadwin model gender stereotypes that's occurring in the classroom and in society, this consecutively correlates with girls' lower levels of political self-efficacy and an aversion of political participation. And as you see over here, and as one of the UK teachers said in one of the interviews, boys are more likely to say any answer, girls are more likely to not to give an answer unless they're 100% sure. So we see that girls start to avoid any possible conflicts of political discussion that might occur to a classroom, and avoid taking the risk of participating in political discussions in front of the classroom. And on the contrary side, boys appear to be more vocal in the classroom and daring to take more often the risk to participate in political discussions, take decisions, and more space in political discussions in the classroom. Whereas girls tend to retain a more passive attitude and doing more listening rather than participating in the political discussions. And in addition to this, politics that are related to politics, gender, and race, as you see in the last quote over here, are very much often seen from students as challenging and dangerous discussion points inside the classrooms. So those topics are seen as they can cause unwanted debates, arguments, and confrontations, and therefore in the discussions were depicted as unpleasant and unwanted points of discussions by the students. And to go a bit forward, taking from the latter a version of girls' political participation, the fear of standing out from the group, and by that experiencing negative feelings, counter reactions, and more specifically, being humiliated and laughed upon popular political views, either from students' peers or from the teachers, is deemed as another global barrier in students' political participation. And in terms of the perceived role of the teacher, students said that disengagement in political discussions often occur from teaching practices and pedagogies as seen as not accepting students' expression of political opinions, or not fostering an open classroom climate. So we say that for students, the feeling of feeling safe and accepted in the classroom is quite important. And this maybe also come back to what I mentioned before regarding to democratic values of dialogue and of hearing different opinions. A common learning technique that is applied in the open classroom climate. And just to mention also that for students, some of the teachers were seen to aim to discipline the classroom instead of fostering discussions and conversations. And in some instances, teachers were perceived of showing favoritism, always according to students, according to specific student characteristics. So students perceive that their good performance and less often gender or race are playing a role in their acceptance from the teacher. And coming to the intersectional the role of intersectional differences, the students in Denmark, Belgium, and Czech Republic initially expressed that their schools were making an equal effort for both girls and boys, for both students of lower or higher socioeconomic status, or for students coming from ethnic backgrounds. And we noticed that this can be noted initially as students not feeling that they were treated differently, or that socioeconomic background and ethnicity was playing a factor. However, when we were going more in depth into the focus group discussions with their students, ethnicity and race came up as topics as topics and factors that appear to play a role in student discussions in all of the countries. So in Belgium, Denmark, Czech Republic, and the UK, and those factors were seen as having a role in students' political participation in the classroom. And in line with some of the other data that we had from Work Package 3 and Work Package 2 that was focusing on the systematic literature review, but also from Work Package 3 teachers' interviews, students in the focus groups mentioned the role of the family background connected to socioeconomic status and cultural capital. And they mentioned that those factors can play a role in shaping students' interest and political participation. And with this point, I think we're well on time, and I will conclude here with some main conclusions. But before coming to that, I would just like to pinpoint that we had a couple of reports on that, which the first one was the cross-country database on observation, and the next report was a joint report with Work Package 2 and the partners that did the systematic literature review. And this is where the focus group analysis is coming from. And I would like to thank you. But first, I would just like to provide some main concluding points. So based on what main concluding points of the focus group. So based on the focus group's finding, we saw that politics were seen as an uninteresting topic to students, and was about to avoid at all. Sometimes was said that it was about to avoid it at all costs. And politics is much often seen as a non-relatable topic to students. However, they often express that the understanding of politics as a domain has often to do with decisions that affect students' lives, but students experience it as something different to their everyday life. And students reflected on socioeconomic status, family background, social class, and ethnicity. And less often, students were able to link politics to democratic values and dialogue that can take place inside and outside of the classroom. And in these cases, politics, citizenship, and citizens' responsibility was often related topics with each other for students. We also noticed in the focus groups that political discussions in the classroom are not taking place often, and if they do take place, girls tend to listen more and participate less than boys do. And what is noticeable is that girls are avoiding taking the risk of political participation in front of the classroom. The participation, according to them, can be a form of ridiculousness or a form of conflict. The classroom atmosphere and the climate contributes to the willingness of students to participate in discussion. And we've seen in the lack of students' participation in political discussions in the class, that it relates to the limited understanding about politics and discussions. And those can be perceived as challenging topics and be understood as the cause of a negative climate in the classroom that students would like to avoid. And as I said before, boys tend to be more vocal in the classroom, taking more often the risk to participate, and they tend to take more space in the political discussions. Girls, on the other hand, tend to seem more passive and to retain a more passive attitude, doing more listening than participating in the classroom. And with that, I think that I will close for now. I think we're exceeded time, and I will thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Athena. And I will stop the recording right now for those so we can commence our open discussion. And so for those of you who are watching later, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you at the next seminar.